Good afternoon, everybody. Fantastic to see lots of people zooming in for this session by International Development, and a welcome to people in the room, some of whom are my team members, which is really lovely. But we have some visitors here too, so thank you very much for making time to come along. The International Development or Global Development session really was the brainchild of one of our colleagues, Kylie Cooper, who suggested putting something into T&L Week to really try and spread the word about global development and at UQ, and I think it's been a terrific initiative and we're delighted as a team to be part of this. UQ's had a really long history of development work, not only through UQ International Development or UQID, which has been in existence for over 25 years and delivered projects all around the world during that time. But in addition to that, there's lots of people working on really, really cool research projects that achieve wonderful development outcomes or could be applied to achieve those outcomes. And so in the last 12 months, we've really focused on creating more emphasis on how do we harness together all of that development expertise and all of the people who have a passion and interest in development to come together so that we can grow UQ's development work and the positive impact that it achieves around the world. We're really committed to continuing this, and these events are just part of what we do to try and harness together all of those people working in development. And that way we can connect to different stakeholders, a more varied range of opportunities, and help the university really make a footprint in the development space. Our aspirational goal under the new Global Development Impact Plan that we launched in the middle of this year is to be the go-to university for development expertise across the Indo-Pacific. Now, I jokingly say to people, I'll take any definition of Indo-Pacific that suits me at the time, because sometimes it runs from Africa all the way around to Latin America, other times it's definitely the Pacific and up into Indonesia, sometimes across to South Asia. But whichever those definitions works for us in terms of the opportunity or the project that we need to be involved in, we'll utilise that. Today we've got some fantastic stories to hear about some development work that the university's done in the past and some of the great outcomes that have come from that work. And it'll also open up for discussion how we can be involved or how other people can get involved in development. And it's about bringing those connections together. Global development has a myriad of definitions, just like the Indo-Pacific, and a lot of people don't have a clear understanding or knowledge about what the development sector does. So we thought we might get people to share what their initial thoughts are, and then I'll leave you with what a broad definition is that we sometimes use when we're explaining the work that we do. So there's a QR code, I think, on tables in the room. And Kaori, have we got a link for people on screen? And the idea is to scan that and then pop in some words, pardon me, that as to what you think international development or global development is. We'll give everybody a few minutes. Awesome. You know, the most pleasing thing is it's not about international student recruitment, which is often what I get when we advertise jobs. So I'm really pleased to see a broader understanding. So the definition of global development that I sometimes refer back to is one around the activities that we undertake directed towards reducing poverty and inequality, and to improving education, health, economic growth and sustainable environments around the globe. It's also often inclusive of humanitarian aid or disaster relief in the emergency situation, but that's just one component of it. It's that broader cross-section of activities that we do with communities to help them become more robust, more secure and more stable and more sustainable. So when you can see all the words that are being added in there, it really fits so nicely with where we drive to do our development work. Now, I have the great honour, my name's Dallas, by the way, of heading up UQ International Development, and I have done for the last 6 years. Very proudly, we've got that plan launched this year. We've launched our Global Development Hub, which is a really important component for UQ's work in this area. And Jess Morgan has just joined us as the coordinator, running the activities of the hub and coordinating all of our work there. But I also have some other colleagues here today, Twa Haring, Joel Bird, both senior development coordinators with our team, and Kaori Sugita, who's a development assistant in our team. And very proud to say we have our new recruit, Akanksha, who's starting with us tomorrow. So really delighted to have you here too. I'm going to hand over to Joel now, who's going to tell some stories about development and really showcase some of the work and great outcomes that development work achieves. Thanks, Joel. You're going to use this.
All right. Hi, everyone. You can go to the next slide now. And the next slide. There we go. All right. So we thought to kind of start off, and I'll go through these pretty quickly, but we thought it would be really good to talk about some of the stories of the impact that some of the international development programs have had, and not just the impact that it has on the communities and the development kind of impact, but also what it's done for teaching and learning and research here at the university. A lot of our programs, we do focus a lot. One of the things about UQ International Development is a massive focus on development impact and actually seeing change occur on the ground in communities, and not just theoretical or research kind of based, as valuable and important as they are. But one of the things we really love is how by going through this work and by doing these kind of activities, there's also a benefit and an increase in impact and change that happens for our own teaching staff or our own academics, researchers and staff here. So we're going to go through a few of our programs and just kind of quickly touch on how this has kind of worked. So the first one we have is around a program that we did in Africa called Local Economic and Social Development in Extractives Industry, which is a long-term program that we've delivered multiple times now in sub-Saharan Africa in a range of different countries, mostly focused on Madagascar. One of the really amazing participants that we've had, and we've had quite a few, was Richard, who came onto the program looking particularly at Ghana, which is where he was from, and the work that he was doing there, and seeing some of the challenges there, particularly around small-scale mining and a lot of illegal mining happening, where big mines would get built and then they would be abandoned for whatever reason. And then what happens is a lot of small individuals would run into the mine and start trying to mine it themselves with no safety equipment, with no understanding, with no processes, with no machinery. And actually becomes a really massive health and safety issue, as long as just a number of other issues. Richard worked together to advocated for over 4,000 miners to legalize their small-scale operations. So he helped work with the government department that he was part of to get the support that they needed to turn these little tiny mining operations into legal ones that did have health and safety parameters, that they worked with the bigger mines to help make sure that there was safe environments for them to work in and aspects like that. He created a radio show. He continues to advocate for disability inclusion, particularly based on people who have been injured from mining collapses and issues like that. While Richard and his story has had an amazing impact on Ghana, and there's a number of other countries that I can talk about one, I also want to talk about Linda, who is the course leader that we selected for that program. And she's delivered this now for a number of years. When she first started, she was a key expert in this space. She worked with SMI. She had a really good understanding of it. But once she really dug and engaged with these communities and the people in the program, she discovered just how much of an issue this small-scale mining management was, and just how significant of an issue it was, but also how not understood it was by communities in Africa, but also by mining companies here in Australia or internationally. And so her PhD then focused around this area, and she's now considered a global expert in the space. Through SMI, and through other networks, she's also going on to create other opportunities now to share her research, to share her expertise in new spaces that wouldn't have been possible, say, 5-10 years ago before she was a part of this program. Can you go to the next one, Kari? Kari's looking out the window. Hey, there you go. And this is a similar story, and there's kind of 4 of these that I'll go through quite quickly, but they're very similar stories in amazing impact happening on the ground and for the teacher. So in this one was an agribusiness course. We worked with Africa again, or a number of countries across Africa to help support agribusiness production and improvement across a whole range of different value chains. Frida did some amazing work around pineapple value chains, which probably isn't one that you think of much in sub-Saharan Africa, but it does actually have quite a large market and some kind of impact. And so she worked to get a whole heap of funding for women farmers and just inclusive kind of farming practices through that. And then her last one was she's now working with this larger network to support their food practices. So again, some really interesting kind of impacts. But from the program, again, has been delivered multiple times. Ben Dent, who has been delivering it, I think the whole time, in collaboration with Ray Collins and a couple other people from SAFS, they've now gone away and they've started working on the program that they delivered and how to turn that now into a sustainable toolkit or manual that they can be pushed out into a range of different areas. So the agribusiness course, as it stands, is being turned into this manual for agribusiness value chains analysis with a real focus on how to grow and improve the value chains for communities, particularly lower income ones. It's been supported by DFAT, so the Australian government's come on board to really help grow it and build it. It's currently in its final kind of stages of approvals now. And we're hoping to really get that out there into the community and get that into the industry quite quickly to really amplify that one.
Well, I might just add RIG with some funding back into that work that we do.
Thanks. One of the other big areas for us is around women in leadership. Particularly, we have a program called the Women in Executive Leadership Development Program, which we've delivered in Pakistan and Bhutan and Nepal and Mongolia, Sri Lanka. I'll lose track of them. One of the really big ones was in Bhutan, where we worked with 20 different women from there. One of them was Kasang, who is now following the course and following her leadership development, is the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance. And she talks about through the course how she was able to develop these kind of frameworks and the strategy document around how to enhance representation of women in the executive service of Bhutan, which has been amazing to see now that it is included in their 5-year plan, that it is a committed goal now of the government to amplify women in executive leadership levels in the Bhutanese government. Again, though, for the teaching, there was Jen and Polly Parker, who did some amazing work around that. And they've now been able to amplify that by doing other countries, as we talk about them. There's also been follow-on activities with some of the women, particularly in, say, Pakistan or a couple of the other countries, where they've been able to go back and do even more work directly one-on-one with them and support people on that. So it continues to grow even beyond the short training activity that we do. There's a huge impact that follows through and massive opportunities. And the last one is a bit of a funny one because it's on countering violent extremism. So we're not allowed to put up some of the names. Kari. But it was on countering violent extremism in Bangladesh. And again, it was a really impactful program where the course participants were able to look at how violent extremism is promoted through social media, particularly, mainly through Facebook. And they were able to, when there was some civil unrest in Bangladesh, they were able to kind of utilize a lot of the knowledge they built to help manage that and support that, and also include inclusive practices and how to kind of do this well. But for the course leader, again, it continues to grow in what he's able to do. And so through the work in Bangladesh, he's now doing work in Lebanon with the Council of Europe, working on their anti-corruption in the Lebanese armed forces. One of the really big things, and part of that was particularly after the Beirut explosion. That's the right term for it. One of the big things that we want to do, and that's kind of all the examples, is very much that there is massive impact of these programs and huge opportunities in working with global development activities. And most of us, when we think about them, we think about the impact that it'll have on a community or on individuals. But there is also the massive impact back to the university and massive impact back for those involved in them, in teaching and training them. So I really hope some of these stories kind of highlight how different they can be. From some of them would be further opportunities for research, others of them have really furthered their career. I was about to say his name. For this course leader, it really helped amplify his work into other regions. And it really provides a range of different opportunities that many are not quite obvious to start with, but are fantastic opportunities to grow and support teaching and learning. And so I think the next bit, which is Twa. Harry. I'll hand over to Twa to start a conversation around that.
Thank you, Joe. And for those who are interested in hearing more about the work that we do have many of those inspiring stories on our global development website. But today we will also hear directly from some of our contributors. Sorry, Carrie, would you mind spotlighting Paul on the screen? And can I please have Akanksha and Beck joining me on the stage, please? Yes, while we are sorting out the technical in the background, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Twa Haring, and I'm a Senior Development Coordinator in the International Development Team. I have been with the team for 5 years now. However, my first engagement with EQ International Development went back to 2011. So that was 10 years ago. I was a master's student of Master of Development Practice at EQ, and I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to do an internship in climate change research in the sub-region, Mekong region, in the summer, and that was really valuable to my studies and also for my subsequent career development. So the team, the EQ International Development Team, we have a wonderful team of professionals, almost 20 of us, delivering work, pursuing business opportunities and delivering projects in over 80 countries. However, to deliver such a broad scope of work, like Joe have just mentioned, we do work in agriculture, in humanitarian action, in leadership, in mining, sustainable minerals. So we, of course, cannot do it by ourselves. And we, as the International Development Team at EQ, we are very privileged to be able to count on and translate the world-class knowledge and expertise of EQ researchers and academic and staff into development projects around the world. So today, I'm very delighted to be having a conversation with Beck McIntosh, Akanksha Phukan, and Paul Rogers. Paul, do we have you on the line?
You do. Can you see me?
We can see you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Good.
We switch to the other mic and allow this to be shared between Beck and Akanksha. Carrie, would you mind stop sharing the slide and then spotlight Paul? Yes, we now can see you a lot better, Paul. Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. So I would like first to do a bit of short introduction about our speakers today. We have Beck McIntosh, and Beck has 20 years of diverse community and career development experience with a Bachelor of Business and Master of Digital Media. Beck's early career opportunities were in the not-for-profit sector, running online health promotion training to Indigenous communities, followed by an European adventures, running local youth project and EQ-wide European Commission Youth Project, Eurodesk, She's an experienced career consultant currently working as MBA careers consultant at UQ with a passion for entrepreneurship. And she has founded a startup and managed an accelerator program. Beck has facilitated 3 UQ International Development Program, the Pacific Fisheries Leadership Program funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, New Zealand, the DFAT-funded Impact Private Sector Partnerships, and most recently, the Australia Awards Women in Executive Leadership Development for Mongolia. Thank you for joining us today. We have joining us over via Zoom is Paul Rogers. Paul is a human geographer with 20 years experience in academia and private sector, working in areas of sustainable development and corporate social responsibility. He currently is working at Sustainable Minerals Institute at UQ, where he managed applied research and capacity building projects focused on development minerals. Prior to this, Paul was the manager for Indonesia and Southeast Asia at UQ International Development, where he managed projects funded by various bilateral and multilateral development agencies. And across those projects, Paul has worked with a range of government, industry, international donors, civil society clients, including DFAT, the World Bank, and the United Nations. Last, but definitely not least, we have Akanksha. Akanksha is a recent graduate from UQ with a Master in Peace and Conflict Studies. Previously, Akanksha has held positions within UQ as student partner for HAS faculty, and she's passionate about gender and human rights. The occasion that Akanksha engaged with UQ International Development was as part of the student organizing committee for the Research for Development Impact conference, which we hosted in July this year. For the conference, which is one of the flagship and key activities in the development calendar in Australia, we organized the 2 days conference and 1 day student forum that is purely organized by the students and for the students. So Akanksha, together with few other students at UQ, was selected to be in the committee, and they successfully pulled off a day attended by stakeholders and delegates from over 26 countries around the world. So that is some brief information about our panelists today. Paul, Beck, and Akanksha, could you please give us some insight on how and why you started working or being engaged in international development?
I'll kick off, Paul.
Yes.
Thanks for having me today. I had the opportunity to dive in earlier this year for my first international opportunity with global engagement, the development team, and it was an opportunity for me to really align my my sort of values and theme, which has run all throughout my career in terms of capacity building. So it was that magic mix of having a lot of random experiences that all of a sudden delivered value to someone. So the opportunity of having worked with startups, run my own startup, was very much aligned to sharing business model canvases with DFAT audience. So, and it's really great to share some value with where you can unlock other people's potential. So that's how it all started, and then it evolved into further programs. But that theme of not only providing value to someone to unlock their skills, but on a personal and professional level, because all of the programs have an opportunity to bring people together in country, and that there's another layer of value in that, where people are raising aspirations, being surrounded by peers, listening to stories, and ring fencing the time to be together on that education journey. And that was the real gem within each of the programs that I've worked in.
Thank you, Beck. Akanksha?
All right. As Thua mentioned, I joined the UQID team as a volunteer when I was working with the Student Forum Committee members as part of the RDI conference in 2021. And the reason why I joined as a volunteer was because that was to be very honest, that was my last semester of studies, and I really wanted to be involved with UQ as much as possible. And the RDI conference was not only something that I wanted to be a part of, but also, as Beck mentioned, it aligned with what I was looking for. My degree in peace and conflict studies was very much related to the whole idea and the theme behind RDI conference in 2021. And also, as Dallas mentioned, how interdisciplinary the whole idea of international development is. I feel any graduate or any student studying in UQ within the HAS faculty or in the development practice can relate to the work that UQID does. And that is the sole reason why I took the initiative to apply to become a volunteer.
Thank you. And I have to say that it was a very competitive route of selection. We had 32 applicants all around Australia. Students from various universities apply, and we ended up selecting 5. So they were absolutely outstanding and were delightful to work with. Paul, could you share with us?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Twa, and thanks for the introduction. So I'm a senior research fellow at SMI, which is the Sustainable Minerals Institute, which Joel mentioned earlier. I work in what's called the Development Minerals Program. It's really interesting how you end up in the development space. I don't think there's any one particular direction or path to get there. For me, it was really just a matter of fortune and then focusing my studies all those years ago on matters related to social and human development, economic development. And I somehow, meandered my way through, and now here I am 20 years later, working directly in the development space for organizations such as the World Bank and the OECD and the United Nations Development Program. I really started off 20 years ago when I did my PhD, which was on natural resource management. And the major funder of that program that I was looking at for my PhD was the World Bank. And they had really made quite a mess of some of their investment in large-scale agricultural development programs in Indonesia. And I wanted to know why that was and why they kept on doing the same policies for over 30 years. About a decade ago, I joined SMI, where, as Twas mentioned, I've worked for the World Bank, UNDP, OECD, plus a whole plethora of mining companies, which also have a role to play in economic and social development. And there's an increasing expectation that private companies, for example, SDG 17 on partnerships for the goals, really implicit in that is that the private sector has a role to play in international development or achievement of development or sustainable development. As Twa mentioned, I also have worked with UQID, and about a year ago I left to join SMI again. One of the highlights for me working at UQID was we pulled together a community development program funded by the Brazilian iron ore giant Vale Minerals. And over a period of four years, that company supported the UQ International Development Team plus a team from SMI to design and implement a multi-million-dollar community development program, which really had 10 projects, focused everything on gender equality, empowerment, economic empowerment for women, to environmental rehabilitation. Currently now what I'm working on in the Development Minerals Program are the minerals, the local minerals and materials that are essential for local development. These are 80% of the world's minerals that are mined, but receive very, very little attention from international development institutions such as the World Bank or UNDP. And our goal in this program is to really raise awareness and to build capacity so that all the multitude of people throughout the world who are involved in sand mining, quarrying, semi-precious stones mining can really benefit and improve their lives.
Thank you, Paul. And also another example of another highlight project, like last year when Paul was part of the IKI International Development Team, I was the SDC reporting directly to Paul, and we worked closely on various tenders and bids. And one of them that we were successful at was the ASEAN Strengthening ASEAN Cooperations in Minerals project, funded by the Australia-ASEAN Development Cooperation Program. And the team currently is still delivering the project. And last month, we deliver a presentation on the project outcomes and recommendations to the Minister of Mines from 10 ASEAN countries, South Asian countries. The work by our team were well acknowledged and endorsed by all the ministers, and they also acknowledged that our work would contribute to not just the immediate identification of needs for the countries in the region in terms of cooperation practice and policies, but also it contributes to the sustainability and the long-term mineral vision for the region. So that was really valuable work, and we are still delivering today.
Can I add to that, Twa, that one of the really big outcomes of that project has been that the recommendations from the UQ team have been taken almost word for word and will form the 5-year plan for all 10 Southeast Asian nations to promote sustainable mineral development and cooperation in the region. So in terms of impact, it's a huge impact. That plan is about to be released later this year or early next year.
Thank you, Paul. And Beck and Akanksha and Paul, we see a common theme in the reason why and how you started working with the IKI International Development Team is not because like all of a sudden like the opportunity arise and we approach you, but you had already been interested in the area and engaged in various works in development already or pursuing study. So with the particular engagement that you have with our team at IKI International Development, what benefits did you see to have contributed to your career development?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think from my perspective, I believe that as a recent graduate whose studies align with humanities and social sciences, or even closely related to development practice, this can be a very important stepping stone for people who have the ambition to work in the field directly in future, or even in association with any humanitarian agencies. I feel, again, I'll reiterate myself, the kind of work that UQID does or development agencies do are so interdisciplinary in nature that even a person who is doing a communications degree or a person who is doing a sociology degree can't relate to the work done by development agencies and UQID in particular. So I feel that from a recent graduate's perspective, there are many avenues to learn, there are many avenues through which we can step into the field of development practice directly in future, as well as indirectly through different administrative role or different kind of opportunities as a volunteer or through internships that UQID can help provide the students. So I feel that this can be a really very important founding stone for people who are looking to delve deeper into the field in future.
Thank you.
And in a similar vein, it's working in the UQ Business School, working with MBAs who are experts in their field, mid-career professionals. They're a pretty privileged bunch, and it is a great opportunity to work in UQ International Development because you're actually building capacity of people who aren't given that privileged position by virtue of their birthplace or gender. So it really has been an opportunity to provide the best use of the skills and experiences that I can bring to an education program to feel that I'm really contributing to a greater good than my current role as well. So that's been a great opportunity, but it's also allowed us to unlock the value within our own students. And we've had students as facilitators in our breakout rooms. They've had the opportunity and absolutely enjoyed every moment of it, to not only have that opportunity and be amazed by sharing that with their friends. One of them posted it on LinkedIn and their friends are like, wow, how did you get that? And, it's just that excitement of doing something different, of stretching yourself, of growing. And that doesn't mean you need to get a new job. You can grow laterally in your organization or personally. And I think that's been a wonderful opportunity, not only for myself as a professional member of staff, but for our MBAs to access an opportunity like that. It was very valuable.
Yes, and then we absolutely look forward to working closer with your cohort as well, because like you say, they are absolutely talented and they are very successful in their career as well. So there's a lot for us to draw on and in a way contribute to the development of other communities around the world. Thank you. And Paul, the 12 months that you met with us and the various projects.
I came, as I said earlier, to UQID after working for years in the development space. And it was a real eye-opener working with UQ International Development. The sheer depth of expertise and the skills there across the development field was just amazing. And I learned a lot in the year that I worked with UQID. I learned how to think like the donors think, how to put proposals together, like, with a real insight into what was happening in the aid field. So that's been enormously beneficial for me, and I've taken a lot of that experience away with me. Working with UQID for the 1 year, but also going back years on various projects with the International Development Team, it's also given me an enormous amount to talk about with my students when I was teaching at SMI. The case studies, the examples, the real applied research cases in the international development field. And I mentioned the Vale community development work, but also I've been involved in the LESDE project that Joel mentioned earlier, the Local and Economic and Social Development project in Africa. So it's just provided me with an enormous amount of I guess, material. And it's really enriched my teaching experience and therefore I think the students that have been in my courses too.
Thank you, Paul. And also the theme of our session today is about fostering diversity and inclusion in the global development work. So in the development sector, at least as far as I've been aware, at least for the past 5 to 7 years, the term GEDC, or gender equality, disability and social inclusion, is a cross-cutting theme. But by cross-cutting, it means for every project and every piece of work that we do, we need to take into consideration those gender and disability and social inclusion elements. For example, at the moment, we are delivering a program on infrastructure financing. Now you probably think so road and airport and rail, what does it have to do with gender inclusion or disability and enabling vulnerable groups? However, we do have particular sessions that share with the participant the experience and the considerations that we take, for example, the soft infrastructure and the hard infrastructure, together with building roads to enable community with better access and transport. We also look to include opportunities for vulnerable groups to have more employment opportunities, and also when we build an airport, make sure that it is fully wheelchair accessible and easy to use for people with disability. So, it would be safe for me to assume that it has not been that dominant to consider GEDC or diversity and inclusion in development work. So Paul, as an expert in stakeholder engagement in development, could you please let us know, from your experience, how have you seen diversity and inclusion change in the past decade or so?
Sure. I think in one form or another, inclusion and diversity and development in the sector has been around for, you know, quite a few decades. You've got women in development. These are all, you know, going back to the 1970s. But what's really changed in the past several years is the rise of GESI and GEDSI, you know, gender equality and social inclusion, gender equality, diversity and social inclusion. They're absolutely fundamental to all development, major development projects that are supported by the likes of, you know, USAID or DFAT or the World Bank now. So it's very much mainstreamed. I guess why it's become such a big deal these days is the growing recognition that development impacts people differently, and usually those adversely impacted are the poorest and most vulnerable members of communities. And so their rights and interests must be explicitly recognized. And, you know, as I said, for this reason, NGOs, development institutions, bilateral agencies are all implementing policies in this space. The World Bank has a social inclusion program, a dedicated website, which is interesting to check out if you get time. I'd say that all of the major development contractors, so these are the likes of Palladium and Coffee or Tetra Tech, these are the ones that take contracts for DFAT and design and implement aid programs. They all have built expertise in the GESI and GESI field, and you know, they have specific specialists these days. I think it'd be almost impossible to win a development tender from DFAT, for example, or the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, without addressing how your project's going to deal with GESI considerations. And Twa, you know, you and I have worked on multiple proposals, and GESI is absolutely crucial to that objective. It's also worth noting that the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs itself has a distinct line item in the foreign aid budget for this year and also for last year for gender equality programs. And, you know, as it stands, I think that's about 65 million in 2021. So really, it's absolutely huge. Indigenous people's rights also very, very prominent these days too.
Thank you, Paul. And also, like, not just as cross-cutting theme or the embedded element into development programs, gender diversity, disability, and social inclusion is also a lot of the time, like Paul said, is a core part of funding that the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade Australia or other funding bodies would focus on. Like an example is the multiple programs in women in executive leadership delivered under the Australia Works banners that we've been delivering. So there's particular funding and objectives that is attached with empowering women and providing them the opportunities to progress further in their career and to further contribute and be a leader in their community and their organization. Now, as we progress further with this session today, the International Development Team and the Global Development Hub with Jess here are also very interested to gain more insight from our contributors and also the audience about how would we be able to provide better platform and better opportunities for staff and students at UQ to engage with our work. Now, Beck, would you mind sharing with us, like from the perspective of a staff member who have delivered into our programs, and then we'll hear from Akanksha about opportunities for students?
It was a great opportunity to be tapped on the shoulder to present at the business model canvas, the first opportunity, which led to further opportunities. And being a professional staff member, having the chance to do that allowed me to stretch into something that I hadn't done before. And so I would highly encourage anyone interested to jump on to the Global Engagement website, and then there's a link into the hub, which is a chance to build community. And with community, there's always learning. So there will be events and seminars and opportunities to connect, but also opportunities to identify the skills that you have that you're able to share with the potential tenders that are coming up. Because the tricky thing is that, with the tendering process, you never quite know who you need at any one time. So you need a community to be able to call on. And there's such strength in the size of the UQ community. Not only are researchers on the front line doing some amazing things already at a local level, but then on the professional side of things, the professional staff have knowledge and networks that can also be unlocked. So I think it's a great opportunity, not only for professional staff capability development and academic opportunities, but also to connect the dots and be able to build that community internally. But also, we're always dealing with industry. So it is being able to share the message with industry that UQ is at the centre of this knowledge. So we could be the preferred provider for any organisation looking for these opportunities. So it's having that mindset and having that at the forefront when we're going out into industry. I think it's a great opportunity for all of those things.
Thank you. And also, with the events, like Vic has just mentioned, we are having a calendar of events for stakeholders across UQ to engage with global development work under the banner of Global Development Hub, which was launched in June this year. And it was very touching at the launch event to hear the Vice Chancellor saying that Professor Terry was personally committed to the development work at UQ, conducted by UQ, so that we would be able to enrich communities all around the world. So such high-level endorsement is absolutely valuable and wonderful acknowledgement to all the hard work that we've been doing. Akanksha, from students' perspective, and myself, as I mentioned before, I started working with UQID as an intern 10 years ago, and here I am today. Tell us more from students' perspective.
So I think if a student like me or anybody else really wants to get involved with the work that UQID does, I was really very proactive to search all portals to find something that I wanted. But I think there can be improvement in terms of marketing the opportunities. There are various faculty and graduate schools that send out weekly emails. If there is a plugin about the networking events that UQID does, or even global development does, it can help create awareness among the students that, oh, such a thing exists within the university premises. And because I know that once you know that opportunity exists, it's very easy to approach the staff. Everyone is really approachable as far as I have interacted within UQ. So once you know that that particular thing exists, you can definitely reach out. But to know that that thing exists, it's very important to market it out. And for me, I think if there are ways that we can plug in these events or opportunities through graduate weekly emails, through collaboration with different faculties and departments of UQ, I think it will really, really help the students. Yes.
Thank you, Akanksha. That is very valuable feedback. And among the activities that we have under the Global Development Hub banner, we also have newsletter. We also have the dedicated website and the intranet space. So it's very new. So please do get on to the Global Engagement website and join us. Also, I'm just mindful that we're supposed to have time for Q&A. However, we are just running very close. We have 2 minutes left. So if there's any burning question, we'd love to hear from you. You could, for the audience online, please do feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. All participants in the room. And follow up from today's session, Jess will also, as the hub coordinator, will also send out a follow-up email with the very clear details about how you would be able to stay connected and engage with the global development work at EQ through either Global Development Hub activities or through the work and tenders by the EQ International Development Team. So please do check your email because we'll be sending it out today. Doris, would you like to say a few?
I'll just
yes.
Which is terrific. I have a secret KPI that I use on measuring what was a great week. Number of goosebump moments that I have, and goosebump moments. Oh, do I need the mic? Sorry, sorry. I have a secret KPI. It's the number of goosebump moments that I have each week, and certainly having worked in international development for the last 6 years, I am amazed at how many of those goosebump moments come up and where they come from. It's absolutely incredible the things that will spark just that excitement and passion. So if I can just share that with you, come and have goosebump moments with us. Join us on the development journey, and you know, there's always different ways to be involved. Doesn't have to be as part of a project. It might be volunteering for a conference. It might be helping out at a workshop just to get a feel for the sector. But we'd be delighted to have as many people join us as possible. So thank you very much for your time and attention this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you everyone online and in the room. Thank you.
Thank you.